All right, everybody, get ready to point and laugh at me. I did not know until today what the difference is between a remake and a remaster. I'm not kidding. For those of you who have not clicked off the video yet, no, that is not clickbait. That's actually true. I'm ashamed to admit it. And really, I've always known the concept. Like, now that I actually understand it, it totally makes sense. I've always known there is a clear difference between these two kinds of games. I just didn't know which word meant what. I always just thought the term remaster and remake could kind of just be used interchangeably, but no, it turns out they are specifically intended for two separate categories of these kinds of games. So if you're like me, you didn't know the difference and you're just you're too shy to admit it in the comments, don't worry, I got your back. A remaster is one of those games where it's just basically a graphics improvement and maybe the improvement on some audio stuff, but usually it's graphics. These are games like Oblivion Remastered and also Gears of War Reloaded. These are two games that are very good examples of this, just basically the same game with better graphics. Maybe some things thrown in there here and there that are different, but yeah, it's basically the same exact game. That's what a remaster is, but a remake is completely, well, remaking the game from the ground up. It ain't just a graphics improvement, it is a totally different way to build the game. At its core, it's the same game with like the same characters and stuff, but it is completely different as far as how it looks, how it feels, how it controls. These are games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Silent Hill 2 actually, I guess, came out with a remake. I did not know that. Not gonna lie, when I did my research for this video here just now, I kind of went down a Silent Hill rabbit hole because of this. I've never played a Silent Hill game. There's another reason to throw tomatoes at me, but anyway, I just basically searched what is the best Silent Hill game, and this one actually came up, so I have added that to my wish list. All right, anyway, besides giving everybody reasons to hate me, anyway, those are the basic differences between a remaster and a remake. So a remaster, it's just basically better graphics. A remake, it's totally different from the ground up. Well, you see, there is actually some research from this company right here, Ampere Analysis. So this just came out today that their research is actually showing that people spend a lot more money on one of these kinds of games. And I've never really thought about this myself, which one of these two kinds of games does get the most praise or at least the most amount of money thrown at it. Well, it turns out that would go to Remakes, where it's basically a completely different game from the ground up. Those are way more popular. So I could not find the actual source on this Ampere Analysis. I think there is a paywall on their website. It looks to be that way. But Video Games Chronicle did report on this, and I have linked this in the description. So they say video game consumers spent twice as much on remakes as opposed to remasters in the last 2 years. And this is according to new research by, as I said, Ampere Analysis. So this was research that looked at 2024 and 2025. It looked at both remakes and remasters that were released in these 2 years across Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam. Their research showed that gamers spent $1.4 billion on these games within these 2 years. Now, when they were looking at these remasters and remakes between 2024 and 2025, and they crunched the numbers on the amount of money people threw at it, both in terms of buying the game and microtransactions, they found that, yes, remakes as opposed to remasters, they got more money. It says global spending on an average remake was more than twice than the average remaster. It was actually 2.2 times more spending on remakes versus remasters. But it does point out the obvious problem with remakes, not really a problem, but a problem in terms of the investment side of things when it comes to the company making them or publishing them, and that is, of course, that remakes cost more money. More time, more resources, also, sure, but just overall more money. A remaster, something that's just going to be the touch-up of graphics and porting it to maybe a different console, that's not going to take as much time or cost as much money, but they generally deliver less engagement as opposed to remakes. Now, the Video Games Chronicle article did provide this graph from the Ampere Analysis research. So the x-axis is the amount of money that was thrown at these games, and the y-axis is actually the peak monthly active users. numbers. So in layman's terms, the more to the right it is on the chart, the more money it got, and the more high up it is on the chart, the more popular it has been. In the pink, you can see that they are the remasters, and those are basically not nearly as popular and definitely didn't have nearly as much money thrown at it as opposed to remakes, except for the one huge outlier, and that is the Oblivion remaster. It by far knocked out every single remaster and remake in this case study by an insane amount, both in terms of popularity and in terms of money. But yes, overall, it looks like the numbers have shown that even though you do have the very big outlier, Oblivion, generally speaking, remakes are going to get way more money. But obviously, when developers and publishers are deciding to completely remake a game, they still have to juggle between a lot of important decisions. Remakes are going to cost more money, but now we know that overall, yes, they do get more than 2 times the money.